All right, good morning. So today I'll be talking about my management plan, and I'm gonna be basing this management plan on what I have going in my classroom right now. So when I talk about, for example, the physical environment, this is currently what I have my kids situated in. So the physical environment in my room, I have student desks that are arranged in 6 groups of 4 and 2 groups of 6. So the 2 groups of 6 are up closest by my desk. These are the students that have preferential seating, have to do more check-ins with. Those students are placed at those 2 groups of 6s that are closest to my desk. And then, and that's also closest to the Promethean board. So I have my students in groups because of Vygotsky's social cultural learning theory, where it says that, knowledge is best acquired, while learning is best acquired in group, environments. And that, which also increases the zone of proximal development. So at the back of the room, I have the supplies, and those are stored on the shelves in the back. That includes small whiteboards that students use with whiteboard markers, erasers, glue sticks, scissors, and extra paper and pencils. I also have turn-in bins in the back where kids will hand in their assignments and their tests. Each period has their own turn-in bin. So opening and closing routines, students are greeted by me at the door every day. I usually do a little check-in on Mondays. I always make them tell me one thing they did over the weekend. This gives me a little insight into their personal life, and also builds a little bit of a relationship between us. When students walk in for the first 10 minutes, there's always a warm-up on the board, and class starts the same way every day. I got this idea out of Jim Burke's Classroom Management, where he talks about classroom norms. Kids need something to expect every day to ease themselves into the period. Instruction is usually wrapped up by either an exit ticket or independent practice. This is a good way to sum up the class. It's a good way to have those closing thoughts, kind of finish up the ideas that I had. Also, this is a time where I'll tell the students what their homework is, make them get out their planners and write this all down. Also, I dismiss the students at the end of the class based on how clean the area around their table is. I deal with 6th graders, so a lot of times, before I started doing this, I'd be finding like stuff on the ground, papers that they ripped out of their notebook on the ground and stuff like that. So this makes my life a lot easier, and the kids, it restores order at the end of the class and kind of gets them in the mood for the next day. Rules and behaviors. Expectations are made explicit at the beginning of the year. So we went over a lot of what's expected in the class, but I get that I have 6th graders, so a lot of times I have to remember them. So for example, I have to remind them. So for example, if we're doing like a group project or like a partner activity or something like that, before we'll get started on that project, I'll say, all right, can someone raise their hand and remind me of our expectations for when we're working in pairs or working in groups, whatever the situation is for that day. And I'll have students and they'll raise their hand, they'll tell me 1, 2, 3 things, and I'll have that happen till the students bring up everything. If there's something that they forget, then I'll be like, what about how the conversation goes? And I'll kind of jog them to remember. So this idea is I kind of got out of Strauch's Corny Jokes in Cognition, where they talk about the prefrontal cortex not being as developed in younger students. So I realized that kids may get excited or may forget about expectations. So reminding them this before each activity we did really gives them a quick refresher, sets expectations for what I have for that activity. Classroom community. Students learn each other's names at the beginning of the year. We did a lot of community building activities, which included just like your typical icebreakers, going around the room, learning people's names. I do a lot of random grouping throughout the semester and like appointment book activities and stuff like that. So the kids aren't allowed to work with the same partners many times. So a lot of times they're going to learn the other people's names because they're going to have to write it down on the paper on who they're working with. And sometimes I'll have partners' names up on the board, and everyone in my class knows everyone else's names. At least all the students, they have a good idea of that. The students are exposed to conversation frames at the beginning of the year. to let them know how to appropriately disagree or agree with students. So this is things such as if they're responding to someone, if they disagree, they would how to like frame it in a polite way. And if they agree with someone, they could be like building on what Marco said or whatever the case is for that day. So these have really helped frame the conversations of how they should respond to students. And if they disagree with someone, they know not to yell out like, oh, that's not right or anything like that. Yeah, and these conversation frames are posted on the wall. Consequences. So I really don't like to give referrals. I think I had to give one referral in the year, and that's because the kid was humping another kid's chair. And I kind of had to at that point because that was like a sexual harassment thing. But usually I'll just pull them out of the class and I'll have like a brief conference with them outside, ask them why they're doing what they're doing, hear their side of the story, then kind of just reset with them what the consequences would be. If a couple teacher conferences don't work and they keep doing things like this, I'll send them over to a buddy room. What the buddy room is they're just gonna go write a reflection in another teacher's room. If that doesn't help, I'll do a call home, and then worst case scenario is a referral. All right, I think I went a little over 5 minutes. Sorry.